As important as the news today is of Sydney entering what amounts to a hard lockdown, and we'll have plenty of that on the show, we'll discuss it all in depth and importantly, what's being done to end it. I want to use the time at the top of the show to discuss another very important issue that's been revealed by the Reserve Bank Governor that hasn't got a lot of coverage, but it's about one of the most critical long-term issues that we'll discuss on Credlin this week, indeed probably this year. Now, if you've ever read one of the speeches from the Reserve Bank Governor, you'll know they're pretty dry, right? They're carefully calibrated so they don't scare the market nor excite them. But just occasionally, amidst the technical jargon and the bureaucratic lingo, there's an important and revealing insight. In a speech yesterday, the Governor effectively conceded that higher immigration has meant lower pay for Australian workers. This is what he actually said, talking about the past decade of flat wages. He said, strong labour demand was met with a strong supply response. The result was that the price of labour did not move much. Translation, if you import workers, you can keep wages down, even if the economy is growing strongly. Now, he went on speculating about what might happen over the next year or so. It's also possible that borders remain closed for an extended period. If so, aggregate wages growth could pick up more quickly than currently expected. Translation, stopping immigration means higher pay. Now, as regular viewers of this program will know, I've been saying for years that immigration averaging about 250,000 a year, or double the average under John Howard, has driven wages down, housing costs up. It's put our big cities into gridlock. It's caused problems in the delivery of health and medical services and places for kids in our schools, and not enough infrastructure for our growing suburbs and more. And it stands to reason, doesn't it, that importing a city the size of Canberra each and every year, well, it's going to massively increase labour supply and housing demand. And naturally, business has welcomed the newcomers because it's meant more workers and more customers. More demand, they call it. And naturally, our gummed up governance hasn't been able to build the houses, the roads, the public transport fast enough to keep up, mainly because governments wait to try and do all of these things after the migrant has arrived. There is really no plan. Now, today, the Treasury Department in Canberra has been happy with all of this because more people mean a bigger overall economy. And key economic stats like total gross domestic product, they all stay positive. But Australians living in the suburbs and earning a wage have been squeezed harder and harder as their pay hasn't kept up with the cost of living. What's more, getting to work has taken longer and longer, and all the other pressures I talked about, schools, hospitals, getting a place for someone you love in an aged care home, all of that's taken a hit. Hence the frustration about life getting worse that was so widespread even before the pandemic. And this is why the fact that yesterday, in his own oblique way, the Reserve Bank Governor has admitted that high immigration has been dudding us is so important. Because for so long, officials and politicians have tried very hard never to admit to this fact. And not only has it been keeping wages down, high immigration has also allowed lazy employers to stop training their staff because they can just import skills rather than create them here. This is what the Reserve Bank Governor said. Hiring overseas workers, quote, can also dilute the incentive for business to train workers to do the required job. Now, translation, that means why bother putting on apprentices when you can import a tradie from somewhere else? Like everything we hear from government, the Governor was relentlessly upbeat elsewhere in the speech. Thanks to the Reserve Bank buying $500 billion of bonds, in other words, just printing money, employment is now 1% above pre-pandemic levels. Unemployment is back to where it was 2 years ago. This all points to the resilience of the Australian economy and the effectiveness, he said, of the policy response. Sure, all of that's accurate. But it's this constant happy talk from leaders who are still closing us down while the rest of the world is opening up that people now find so grating. Still, occasionally, like yesterday on migration, the truth emerges. Now, I'm proudly pro-immigration. I'm a migrant to this country like so many others, but our immigration program has to be in Australia's national interest and set at a level that helps Australia, doesn't hold us back. How many we take in, how many migrants we take in, the intake level they call it, that should be determined from a proper population plan. Only is it? Would it surprise you to know that governments who have got a report on this and a plan for that don't actually have a national population plan? That's the reality. It's a sorry reality. The next time government tells you that we need higher immigration to boost the economy, your response might be, let's talk about it. Because the worry is that's just big business wanting to cut our wages. Because we now have exactly that on authority of the Reserve Bank Governor himself.